Hello and welcome back to the Last Word on Spurs. Back. International break over. Trip to the dentist. What are we letting ourselves in for here? If you're for the first time, you can find us on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms. We, of course, are your multi-award-winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. Back alongside us, familiar territory, returning regular panelists, Richard Crackers Cracknell is in the house, kind of, sort of. Cracks, how are you?
Yeah, very well. Thanks, Rick. Evening, Billy. Evening, Lee, and everyone watching. And I note with interest at the bottom of the screen there, Rick, on the ticker, you've got one of the little sub-headlines that says Semenyo clause. Is that like, because we're coming up to Christmas, is that anything like Santa Claus? Or I hope it's nothing like Eze clause, where he promises to deliver and then takes all his presents to the neighbours.
It's about as close we'll get to no luck during the upcoming window. Phil looks deflated already. He's only just joined us here. Back on the show, who of course loves a transfer rumor. Billy T's back in the house. Bill, lovely to have you here. Why do you look so scared? It's Arsenal next. You look terrified.
I know, mate. I'm going to be asking Crackers if there's any space in Spain next week. I think I'm gonna emigrate, whatever you call it. I'm strapping in for a tough one, mate.
Yeah, and look, if the trip to dentist chair isn't hard enough or tricky enough as always, one man we always want to bring him back on this show, normally to terrorise us, but the bizarre thing is, I think a lot of Tottenham fans find him quite popular. He's probably the only one on the high road that actually gets a free kind of roll of the red carpet on the high road, and all the way back we've got the brilliant returning Lee Judges back on Last Word on Spurs. Lee, lovely to have you here, mate. We try and make it our little customary twice a season. Lovely to see you, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good. Like, you know, I don't know about that. Welcoming, well, certainly ain't welcoming when it's down at your place, but you know what I mean. I'll tell you what, I was very welcoming if any of the Spurs fans are watching. When I went to on my summer holidays, it was the day that you was doing the parade on the Friday. And my mate normally takes me.
What a day!
I know he normally takes me on the cab fare. Did that, but he couldn't get to me, so we said, "I'll tell you what, like it's a Friday afternoon. We go by train, only like." You know, get on the old Elizabeth line straight in. So, and then I went, oh no. And I got to Cheshunt station and it was full of you lots, absolutely full of them, like all going, like, you know. And you got me case and all my red case as I'm walking along, like, you know. And then if I got recognised, I said, no, give it to me, like, you know what I mean? Do you want to come give shout out? Do you want to come to the parade and all that? No, I don't, you know what I mean? So, yeah, that was very, very friendly and had some good banter on the old train line. So, you know, all the Cheshunt Spurs fans that were going there, that was quite funny, like, you know. So, yeah, other than that, all good. Looking forward to this one. I'm not going to lie, I hate these games normally. But I'm looking forward to this one. I'm looking forward to it.
Can I just pick one thing up there you mentioned about the parade? I think one of the things you might want me to mention this, but I thought it was actually great what you did. I think it was the Monday after the parade. I think you was on with Robbie. I think you did your Invincibles podcast. I know you made a point on there about the parade, and you kind of made that point on there that, you know, Tottenham is a proper football club. I know you've got that respect there that you always, I know, as much as we banter, you do respect, you know, the nature of the rivalry and, of course, the London Derby itself, about the size of that parade, which turned out. And that kind of gave a recognition about just how big Tottenham were, right, compared to, all due respect, the Chelsea, the cities of this world. I hope no one will be saying that on here.
Yeah, listen, I ain't got no beef about that. In my eyes, Spurs are a bigger club than Chelsea and always will be, like, you know. You can go on about trophies and all that, like, and, you know, but they haven't got them properly, have they, like, you know. You know, they've bought a lot of them or whatever, like, you know. But with Tottenham, they've always, all through my lifetime, I've always had like horrible fans, but quite a lot of them, like, you know what I mean. So, you know, and listen, you know, when Spurs won that well, obviously, you know, when they won that cup, you know what I mean. I sat in my house. It finished about 9:45. It was, my room was dark, and at 2:30 I was just still sitting there because I knew what was coming. You know what I mean? I knew what was coming, like, you know. And of course, the next day I walked in along Tesco, went to Tesco. They're all out in the Spurs shirt. Oh, they're pride.
Brookfield must have been happy.
Oh
That
my
fair,
God! Like, everybody's got their Spurs shirts on, going shopping, going to work, and all that. Like, you know. But when you go back to that parade, and you go back to, you know, like Michelle, my partner, her son's a Spurs fan. He's sending me like videos from the Tottenham Hotspur saying, because he went and watched it down there. A couple of my mates, the old plumbers from the old doctors, they were out there, like, and the fan. It was unreal from a you know, an Arsenal fan watching that, like, you know, how many fans were at the White Hart Lane that day, like, you know, and obviously going to the game as well, like, you know, and that was the painful thing, right? We went to Bilbao this year, and one of them, mate, Jake phoned me up and said, "Whatever bar you go into, you know, that Spurs fan." We were celebrating that one about 4 months ago. I never enjoyed Bilbao at all, like, you know what I mean? I didn't enjoy it at all. Couldn't wait to get out of there, like, you know what I mean? So, and I've been to Bilbao and all that. It's all little bars and all that, like, you know? And yeah, so everywhere we was going, we thinking, oh, Spurs fans have been celebrating here, like, you know. So, yeah, it wasn't a good day for us, but you look, listen, you guys know it as well, like, you know, that you've got a unbelievable support and always have to through the years. I remember, like, you know, when Arsenal and Spurs weren't great, you know what I mean, still got big crowds, you know what I mean, like, and Chelsea never did, you know what I mean, let's be honest, you know what I mean, like, they had more cars out in their ground than remember those days. You know what I mean, so but you know,
used to have little cars around the edge of the running track, didn't they? They had like a running track.
You know what I mean.
Back in the 1800s, Rick, everybody had like these. If you needed, like, if you got like mobility cars now, you can get like a normal production car, and they're adapted for whatever disability you have. But back in the day when things were less enlightened, everybody got given like these little like light blue cars. They were like strange little things, and they used to be parked all around the edge of Stamford Bridge. I always remember that, watching Match of the Day as a kid, and there'd just be fleets of these cars all around the edge of the pitch. It was just bizarre. But Lee's right, you know. I remember like Save the Bridge campaign and sections of like the stadium starting them rattling tins to like raise money just to try and keep the club going. So, you know, yeah, of course they've won so much, it's ridiculous in the last few years, but you know, we never let the club get into that state, no matter how bad we've been. It's never been that. Should we just continue to do this hate Chelsea for an hour?
Yeah,
I mean, just go on.
I don't know how you feel about this, guys, but like, you know, like as an Arsenal fan, you growing up as a kid and everything like that, it's sort of ingrained in you to dislike Spurs because it's the local rivals. I'm pretty sure it's the same with you. No one told me to hate Chelsea. No one told me to hate Chelsea. No, I was never going up as a kid and going, but I hate them. I hate them like with a passion. You know what I mean? I'll be honest, I want them to win 2 games a season. That's against you lot. You know what I mean? Like, other than that, I don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but I you know, they've sort of, the hatred for them is a different hatred. I know that sounds stupid, like, but it is, you know what I mean? It's sort of like ingrained in you, you know, like if you're an Arsenal fan, you can't like Spurs, right? That's how it is. And if you're a Spurs fan, it's the same. You can't like Arsenal, like, you know. But no one's telling me that I couldn't like Chelsea or I couldn't like, you know, do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't know. It's just a different thing with them, isn't it? Like, you know.
What's the saying, Rick? I hate Arsenal because I'm a Tottenham fan, but I hate Chelsea because I'm a football fan. Yeah. And I think that's the same for everybody.
Great way of putting it. Yeah. Great way of putting it.
Yeah. Bill, let's bring you in. We've had an interesting last couple of weeks off, fair to say. What's the mood, Bill? Do you mean you've always got a great sense, I think, a pulse of the fans? What is the mood going into this derby? Because it does feel that there's an expectancy, I think, on Arsenal to win the game. Spurs have got a magnitude of injury which we'll come on to. Arsenal's got a few injury doubts. Of course, we'll get that covered in the upcoming press conferences ahead of the end of the week. But what's your mood, Bill, going into this one?
I don't think any Spurs fan will be particularly looking forward to it, to be honest with you. It's a bit like having a CT scan, isn't it? Like, you can't really look forward to it. You just want it to be over. So, like, I don't know, mate. I think we're not been playing particularly well going into it, have we? And there's been lots of stories about the home atmosphere and the home form's been poor, but actually we've been pretty good away. Trouble is, we're about to play the best, arguably the best. I don't want to call them the best team in the league, in front of the league, but one of the best teams in the league away. They don't concede any goals. They don't lose any games. So it's a really tough ask. I think when we got Thomas Frank, like, one of the things that we all wanted him was to make us more competitive in these derbies. But let's have it right. We've been absolutely shocking in the derbies versus Arsenal and Chelsea in the last 2-3 years. Unfortunately, when we played Chelsea, there was no improvement. In fact, you could say that was our worst performance of the season, I think, to be honest. So that was a real blow. And I think when we hired Thomas Frank, we wanted these games, against the big teams like Arsenal, to be a bit more competitive. So that's what I'm hoping that we get. I think you could kind of draw similar comparisons between the two teams. We're both good from set pieces. We're both struggling a little bit in open play. But I think if Tottenham fans are honest, they are a much stronger version at the moment of what we are, as you would expect them to be, because we're 6-7 weeks into a project, 12 games into a project. They've had a project where they've continually backed their manager for 7 years now. And as much as it hates me to say it, Stam stood protesting for a long time last season. All we want is an ambitious board, and unfortunately, down the road, that's what they have. They continually spend money. They continually buy really decent players. They continually have high transfer windows. So it's a really tough task ahead of us. I don't think it's going to be one of them games, like the classic North London derby that we've seen in the past, like the 4-4, the 5-4. I think it's going to be an absolute stink fest from both teams, to be honest, and probably get won by a set piece either way. So, yeah, I'm not particularly looking forward to it. I can't wait for it to be over. I don't think this confidence will be sky high among Spurs fans at all, if we're honest.
Yeah, it's Lee, it's never a dull time when you're on here, right? There's always, it feels trepidation in the air when it comes to a North London derby. Arsenal went 8 games without conceding just before that international break, where they conceded 2 up at Sunderland the last time out. Arsenal had some knocks, to be fair, in this international break. Of course, they've lost Gabriel, which appears to be anywhere in the remit of up to a month as things stands. I'm sure
that is massive, though, isn't it? That is massive, mate. He's been their best player of the season, their best player by far.
Yeah, Lee, we'll ask you on that. Obviously, him being out the game, we'll ask you on that point how big that is. It looks like Mascara will be in frame to replace him. There is doubts over the fitness of Enquiries going into this one. There's also, I think, doubts on Calafiori and Julian Timber. Lee, tell us your thoughts about this one for you. How big are those doubts or concerns, given the fact Gabriel out and a couple of doubts going into the game for you? Is there a worry in the camp?
Yeah, look, listen, Gabriel's a big loss, more so from an attacking point of view than a defensive point of view. I know that sounds silly to say, but we've got Mascara who comes in, or even Enquiries who's just come to the club. So I don't think we're worried about it defensively, but the guy's just a beast at set pieces. You can't stop him, and if he gets the right delivery, which Declan Rice and Saka do, and he is a big threat, as you well know from last season. It was a scrappy sort of a game, and he pops up with a goal. So we're going to miss him from that point of view. But at the end of the day, we've got cover in those areas. The concern for me is more of the front line. You know what I mean? It's we went to Sunderland without a striker. To be honest, we went 1-0 down, and I thought in the second half we was brilliant and one of our best performances. We tore them apart, got to 2-1, and then there's a decision to make. If you've got Martinelli on the bench, you've got maybe a Enquiries on the bench or a Madueke. 2-1 up, you put them on to kill the game. We didn't have those options, so we had to go with a defensive option, and we ended up conceding. So hearing that maybe Martinelli will be back on the bench, that would be a good thing for us, to just give us that little bit of options going forward, So listen, I think if Enquiries is fit, I'll be smiling at at 3:15 or whatever it is, because I think that he's a player that if we're going to do well this season, I know it sounds people go, oh, he's doing this and doing that. The way we play is central to the way we play, like, you know, because he does pin the two central defenders, and that allows Saka, like against Sunderland, Saka was getting doubled up again, like, you know, which teams have been trying to do, but then you're leaving someone free. So, and you can't leave Gyökeres free in the box. So it's sort of like, that would be a thing that I'll be a little bit concerned about. Midfield, you know, like I think that the three in there have done okay. Like obviously, like Rice and Zubimendi's been a good signing for us, by the way. Eze not quite at the races yet. He's sort of been, you know, feeling his way into the team. So, but a big game for him if he does play in that game. Like, so just for me, I think that, you know, Gabriel's going to be a massive loss. I think Timber's going to be okay, but I just think that we just need those options up top. And if we've got them, you know, I don't really know what's going on with Gyökeres. No one's actually said what he's got, whether he's got what sort of injury it has. They've kept that very, very quiet. So I don't know if he's going to be back or not. Like, rumours are that he is, rumours are he's not. I don't know. Like, I don't know why these managers, do you know, like in rugby, they just tell you the team about a week before, don't they? They don't care, like, you know what I mean? And like with these, you know, oh, he's not going to be playing this and that, like, you know. So I don't know why they do those mind games, you know. For me, you know, if everybody's fit, tell them, you know what I mean? Because that, you know,
our managers do it with our own fans. We get told they've just got a knock and then we don't see him for 8 months. So.
Yeah, that does happen, doesn't it? Like, who was that? They said that about Kulusevski, didn't they? You know,
just a knock. We're still waiting 8 months later.
He'll be back in a couple of weeks, and you know, we haven't seen him since. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think he's been out for about a year now. My big worry is, and probably it is the same for you guys with someone like Kulusevski. Havertz is a, you know, a big player for us. You know, hasn't played for nearly a year now. Like, you know what I mean? Jesus hasn't played for. You can't expect these players to come back and hit the ground running. And same with like Kulusevski. Like, you know, I know that Maddison
will be the same as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is a bit of a worry on that front. But yeah, like the other thing is, you know, like, Arsenal got injuries, you know. I mean, every team seems to have a lot of injuries now, though, don't they? Like, you know, Cole Palmer hasn't hardly played this season, like, you know, at Chelsea. There seems to be a lot of injuries about at the moment, and I don't know whether that is, you know, I scratch my head at this. I love that the program, you know, like Big Match Revisited. I love watching that on a Saturday morning and all that. And they're playing 60 games, pitches like, you know, mud heaps, and they're still piling through. And nowadays, you know what I mean, they can't handle it so much like that, you know. But mind you, I do see a few beer bellies out there every now and then on those games, you know what I mean? Like, they've all got Donuses and all that now, haven't they? But it just seems that they do get a little bit more injured nowadays, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, and listen, for both clubs this week got massive games, you know what I mean? Like, it's not just Sunday, it's midweek, you've got Champions League, and then you've got, you know, big games after that, and these Champions League games, you can't sort of rest the players that you would probably do if you was in the Europa League or something like that. So it's a difficult one, really. So, but listen, Gabriel's going to be a big blow. And listen, a few of my Spurs mates are quite happy about that. You know, which is out of order.
I think, again, you look at where we are right now, Cracks, to bring you in, and we'll get your take on the Tottenham news we hear going into this one. Look, like Bill said, this could really change between now and kickoff, because with Spurs, you just never quite know what's happening. Pat Matassar, he was substituted early in the second half during Senegal's friendly with Brazil on Saturday. Senegal boss Pap Tuol said he's got a hit. He didn't feel well, so as a precaution, he preferred to come off, but I don't think it's a big deal. Spurs were then handling another midfield injury concern before that, when Lucas Bergvall suffered a setback in his recovery after concussion. He was sent back by the Swedish national team, where they said they didn't want to take any kind of a risk any further with him. Solanke, he's been more of a long-term absentee. We know at the moment he's really in the picture for Tottenham. And Frank did say that these 2 weeks, this fortnight period, would be crucial into understanding where he's at as well. Romero, obviously, Moani have picked up knocks as well. Obviously, Moani has picked up that, I think, again, jaw problem. We'll understand when that is. You imagine from Frank in the press conference. Where are your cracks heading into this North London derby?
Well, I mean, with the injuries, the problem that we have is squad depth. So that if we do get somebody that we lose out of that starting 11, the quality of the player coming in drops off significantly in some areas. That's the problem. Defensively, like Danso will come in if we lose Van der Ven or Romero, and he's been really decent for us this season, and a decent guy as well by the looks of it. When you see some of the work he's doing off the pitch as well with this and that, so he's been sound. Midfield and especially up front, it's just been a huge loss not having Solanke available. Richarlison should be able to come and slip in, but that's really not been happening. Okay, he got that goal against Man United, and you could see what that meant to him. I don't know. Maybe if we'd have hung on now, and that ended up being the winner, that might have just lifted him out of that malaise, and away he goes. So who knows? He's, as I said before, he's such a conundrum, Richarlison. You give him an easy chance and he just absolutely blows it nearly every time. And you give him something ridiculous like what he done, and he does it. So, he's so sort of maverick and odd like that. Look, I think Sunday, we just want a stink fest, Rick. That's all you can really hope for going there, because you can count on the fingers of a mitten the amount of times that they get beaten at home. Nobody goes there and wins, and that's been that way for a long while. So, you want it so last on Match of the Day 2 Sunday night, but it's being shown on BBC Breakfast Monday morning. That's how stinking you want it. If you just want it to absolutely stink the joint out, I think we've just got to go there and just make it horrible. Just, pick up yellow cards, just spoil play, break stuff up. Because we can't go there and go toe-to-toe and try and play them off the park. Got no chance. And if you sit back as well, you will get picked off. So I think, over the last 3 or 4 seasons, the only time I've really seen teams get something against Arsenal, either home or away, is to do like what Sunderland done. And I think you've just got to play like lions. You've got to break everything up. You just got to be frustrating. And if you can go and be frustrating, that's probably gives you your best chance of getting something against them. And to go there and even get a point would be massive for us at the moment, because we've been very, very up and down with performances. It's very early in the project for Thomas Frank and what he's trying to do. So, just to even go there and get a point would be great for us, because if you can't get the result, the next thing you've got to look at is the performance. There can be excuses for not winning games. You just get undone by a great goal or a better team, but it's never an excuse for not turning in a performance. So that's all I'm really hoping for Sunday, is that we put a performance in. If we do and we can make it frustrating, that gives us a glimmer of hope. So let's see. It's the biannual trip to the dentist, isn't it, Rick? Always, no one enjoys it off either side, do they? And we'll see where we are come Sunday evening.
Yeah, just on that point, coming over you, Lee, I think this is the first time Spurs are going against Arsenal without Harry Kane, Heung-min Son since 2014. I mean, those have been 2 players that have definitely over the years probably been the most that have hurt Arsenal in the Spurs squad. You go back many, many years. We're not really going, it feels like, with a real player that's going to really light this up for us. We hope Xavi Simons will be that player in time. Don't get me wrong. I suppose the question I'll ask you at the moment, the way Arsenal started the league, top at the moment, Spurs going there unbeaten away from home, obviously get knocked out of the Carabao Cups. They have been beaten domestically away. Is there pressure, Lee? You know, you spoke about the parade in, of course, back end of the summer. Is that pressure on Arsenal to win the title this season? And do you really care about how they do it? Because I think there's been a lot made about the way Arsenal are certainly playing style of football wise. And again, Spurs fans, with Frank, there's been some concerns about style of football. What are you making so far of that pressure and the brand of football?
I don't think there's pressure on us to win it. I think like that comes within. I think that you know, the way we're playing at the moment, like, you know, listen, not making excuses, as we've had injuries. You know what I mean? Our playmakers out of the team at this moment in time hardly played. We've got a couple of our strikers out. You know, and important players to us up top. So at the end of the day, once they're all back. And I think Odegaard is a key player for us once he's back. I do think there will be a change of style to us and all that, like, you know. And listen, I think that a lot can be made about that, but I thought we was fantastic in the second half at Sunderland, and we didn't win the game. So, you know, sometimes it's about getting the result, not the performance. And listen, I think the one thing I found about this game is that I think that at time, and it's interesting, a lot of Spurs fans are saying, oh, we're happy with a point and all that, like, you know. There was a time when there wasn't a lot between the two teams, and you know, Tottenham probably were there looking to win games against us as we were there. But I think because of that little bit of pressure now lifted with Spurs, you know what I mean? Maybe that'd be a good thing for Spurs, where the pressure is on Arsenal to get the 3 points. So, if Spurs were to draw this game, I'm pretty sure Spurs would be happy with that, because they got a point and they took 2 points off of us. You know what I mean? For us, it'd be very, very disappointing. You know, for me, the key thing for me would be what happens Saturday night, but at Newcastle, because Man City got a difficult game there. See what happens there, and then you know. But say if Man City win that game, then that puts a little bit more pressure on us to win this game. You know, more it's going to be more. You know, like, don't care how we do it, just as long as we get it done. Like, you know, if Newcastle were to do us a favour, a difficult team to beat up there, then it could just take the pressure off us a little bit more and whatever, like, you know. But I do think there's a little bit of pressure on Arsenal to win this game, because the expectation is that we should, which hasn't been there in the past, guys. You know what I mean? Like, over the last few years, I don't think there's been too much difference between Arsenal and Spurs. I think home advantage, I always say that's a big thing. But, you know, I think, you know, not being arrogant and all that, like, we're due to give a team a good little stuffing somewhere along the line. We've done it against, I'd say it was a very important thing, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, when we played Atletico Madrid. Very, very tactical sort of game. Once we got 1-0 up, they come out and opened up against us, and we ended up like really giving them a good turning over. And they're a very, very good defensive side. So it'd be interesting from that point of view. Like, listen, I go back. The fear that I have with the game is that I was in Hong Kong when Spurs played us that day. Bloody good that day, you know what I mean? Well organised, got the goal, nicked a goal against us, and we couldn't break you down. So, you know, like, I think it's very, very important from our point of view that we get in front. I think that if we score first, I'll be very happy. But if you guys nick one, it's going to be even worse, because one thing I noticed in that Hong Kong game is that how well organised Spurs were that day, like, you know, defensively, and obviously they've worked a lot more on it, you know, and that's why I think that you guys have been better away from home, because you can play that defensive sort of shape and whatever. Probably at home you've got to open out a little bit more and maybe found out a little bit because of that. But, you know, Spurs, no Spurs. Like, say if Spurs are playing Arsenal away from home, they're not going to, and you sit in with 10 men and dig out a boring 0-0 or a 1-0 win. No one's going to complain about, well, we shouldn't do this, we didn't do that. It doesn't matter, you know what I mean? Like, but when you're at home against Wolves and you're not breaking teams down, Spurs fans are going to get the hump, you know what I mean? So I think from that point of view, the pressure's off a little bit on Spurs, because the expectation is that Arsenal are going to win. But listen, there's been many a times when Spurs have been a better team than us, and we've managed to get results against you, So there is a what's the word like? I don't think when they say the derby, anything it evens itself out, and it don't. You know what I mean? The better team normally wins.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
So over the last sort of 5, maybe even more than that, 10 years, I think Spurs have probably had the upper hand on quite a few of those occasions where I felt that Spurs are the better team. I don't mean to be disrespectful about it and all that, but I do think that Arsenal are the better team now.
There's no doubt about that. Yeah, not at the moment. Yeah, two sides
I
now.
do think that we're the best team in the league at this moment in time. Where I felt over the last couple of years, even though we was going for the title and all that, I always felt that Man City were the better side than us and that, blah blah blah. I don't think that they are now. I think that if everybody's fit, I think we're a very, very good, well-oiled drilled machine, that can score from all different places now. Whether it wide up front or set pieces, So, you never look forward to this game, whether it, listen, Arsenal winning leagues when invincible didn't beat you twice that year. They're always difficult games, and I don't enjoy them. I think there's, there's more than 3 points on it when you play Spurs. You know what I mean? You're going to get the stick, you're going to get your mates or whatever. So there is tension when you play that game. I don't sleep very well on the Saturday night. Well, I won't. I know I won't. You know what I mean? And then, if we get the result, I'll sleep like a baby the next day, because that. But you can never tell. But I am going into this one. 1, we're at home. 2, we're a better team, so I'm a little bit confident. But listen, I'll say this and I'll say it again, and I've learnt my lesson from 1991 when we was the better team, blah, 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 going to the cup final. I thought it was going to be a breeze, and I got me pants pulled down that day. So I've learnt my lesson from that, never underestimate these games. So I will still be nervous, still cautious, but quietly confident that we can do it. If we play to our ability, then we'll be okay,
Yeah, before I come around here, Lee, just quickly over to Bill. Bill feels at the moment for Frank, he's not had the greatest of reception so far from making changes. He had boos in 2 big games, one of these seasons against United and Chelsea, when taking players off, bringing players on. Bill, did it feel like a big game for Thomas Frank, a big week for Thomas Frank? Of course, Arsenal, then PSG. Have we got to show us a certain amount of patience in these next 2 games?
I think it's a big game for Thomas Frank in terms of it could be a real defining one. If he goes and gets a win there, then it'll be absolutely monstrous for his reputation. No one's done it since Harry Redknapp in the league. That's how long you have to go back. And there's probably been 1 or 2 maybe in my lifetime at most the times that we've won there. If you're in it, I wouldn't say he's under pressure at the moment. It would be ridiculous to say that. The start's been absolutely fine, hasn't it? I know we have an impatient fan base, and he's doing okay. He's doing pretty decent. He's not got hundreds of thousands of fans calling for his head or anything like that. But there's a little bit of, I wouldn't say doubt creeping in, but there's a little bit of sort of, fans aren't really enjoying what we're seeing. It's a little bit middling in terms of the style of play. But if you want to go and turn that around immediately, a win against Arsenal does that, and then some, doesn't it? It's been so long since we've won there. If he wants to get some credit in the bank, a win at the Emirates will be unbelievable for him. So it's a huge game in that way. And on the reverse of that, I don't think, if we go and lose to Arsenal 1-0, I don't think it's going to be defining for him and saying, Frank out, because we know they're the best team in the league at the moment, unfortunately. And it's a place that we never ever win. So I don't think it's like a career-defining game or a season-defining game or anything like that. But what it could do is really get him some real credit in the bank in terms of with the fans. And I think Lee mentioned pre-season and Lee mentioned PSG. Those are 2 really good performances in the Super Cup that we've already played. We played Arsenal, and they're similar kind of performances. We really dug in and were really gritty, and we won, beat Arsenal, and then we went 2-0 up against PSG, and a similar kind of performance with back 5. Interestingly, we haven't seen the back 5 since. I wonder if we're going to see it tomorrow, see it at the weekend, sorry. And, that kind of performance where we really dug in and, managed to nick a goal. And it was, we played really, really well in both those games. We haven't seen that kind of performance since. So it'd be interesting if he reverts, maybe Danso comes in or something like that. I think if you're going to do it, it's going to have to be at the Emirates away where we're going to be under the cosh, particularly in set pieces and things like that. So I think it's a big game for Thomas Frank. And like I said, if he does win it, then, that'll buy him an awful lot of good credit with Tottenham fans because it's not something that we do often.
Lee, just on the point, can you understand any murmurings of Frank 15, 20 games at the moment? Can you understand any worries or concerns? Or look, you're 5-6 years into a project with Arteta. I think it's fair to say that I remember we had you on here in those early years. There were times where you were maybe yourself questioning the direction of where it was going. Are fans right to question direction at the moment, 15, 20 games in?
Yeah, of course. Like, listen, there was a time when I didn't think Mikel was the right man for the job. I didn't, you know what I mean? Like, we was losing games. It weren't, we wasn't looking like we was ever going to do anything. Then a couple of signings changed all that. Like, like the signing, I know that he's not been successful because of injuries, but Gabby Jesus come to the club, then in a Shinchenko, and obviously like Saliba coming to the club. It just, all of a sudden players do, like do change things, like he's the players at the end of the day. I look back at our defences that we've had, and I scratch my head how we won games of it, like let alone like expect to get into the top four and things like that. I look at our back four now and I think, wow, it's quite incredible. Like, we've got players that are backing it up that would have walked into this team 4, 5, 6 years ago. You know what I mean? So the players do help. And listen, can I dare say that we're entitled to be fickle? Because that's what fans are. You know what I mean? Like, if you win games, we're all happy, aren't we? If you lose a game, you're not happy. I know, so if you start losing games, be really honest, I don't really care who's manager of Arsenal, whether it's Mikel or whatever. If he's winning games of football, then like I'm happy. You know what I mean? Like if he starts losing games, it's a different kettle of fish, isn't it? So I think with Spurs, I think, looking from the outside in, like I think that you've gone with Conte and Mourinho probably one way too far, and then like probably with Ange too far the other way, like, and whether you liked Ange or not, when you actually looked at him not in Forest a few weeks back, you could see that he was out of his depth, you know what I mean? So at Tottenham, I think when he first come in here, it was a breath of fresh air because there was this attacking style and everything like that, which is what Spurs fans always want and all that. Like, so I think they've got to get that happy medium. The trouble with Thomas Frank at the moment is that the system will work away from home and the pressure's not. But when you're at home and you're Tottenham Hotspur and you're playing the likes of Fulham, Bournemouth, Aston Villa, right, and you are expected to win those games. You know what I mean? Like, particularly at home. And if you're not doing that, then there's frustration. And like, it's the same with Arsenal. We had that thing where we weren't winning at home against teams that we lost to Burnley and in Everton and home. And teams that haven't won there for years. And, you're scratching your head going, well, how's he going to turn this around? But he did. Like for me now, if you said to me like, oh, do you want Mikel gone? No way. You know what I mean? Like, I'm loving what he's doing. We go to every game, every ground at this moment in time, like feeling that we ain't going to lose. You know what I mean? Or we've got a chance of winning. You know what I mean? There was times we was going to Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United, think we was going to get snuffed 3 or 4-0, and we bloody well did. So it's very hard to say to a fan, stay patient. You know what I mean? Like,
especially after we've just won the Europa League, right? I think that's the main thing. We finished 17th league. We won the Europa League, but then there's a sense of expectation that we should be doing better. And again, I just want to ask you very quickly if I got a crackers on the style of play. Obviously, under Mikel, you've had different evolvements of his brand, right? There were times where it was really, really exciting. I think I remember having you on here. I think we did this tour West Ham apart, away from home. You were there. You were very much kind of enjoy what you were seeing football wise. It does feel at the moment the two clubs a lot of the goals now are being reliant on set pieces. Where are you on that for you? Are you at a point now, because you just want to see Arsenal win a league where you're not so hooked up about the style as long as Arsenal winning games? Is that fair? And it's not just all about the brand of beautiful football? Because I know you like to see good football. Arsenal have always, under Wenger, been playing great football. So what is it like maybe seeing you sacrificing the brand of football for results?
It's lovely to see good football, but when one team wants to play and the other don't, it's difficult. Like, you're playing up against teams that are playing low blocks all the time, and you're having that at Spurs now. Teams are coming to you with a low block, and it's hard to break down because they're organised. They know what they're doing and everything like that. They're not giving you space behind. You know what I mean? They're not going to go toe to toe. They're going to break things up and all that. So you have to find different ways of getting through. Against Sunderland, as I said earlier on, we couldn't. We had to play. We had to play our way through it and score two good, great goals, and could have won by more at the bar. Goalkeeper may say blah 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 blah. But there are times when if you don't concede, you're not going to lose. You know what I mean? That's one thing about it. And sometimes I look back at a lot of games that decided on corners or free kicks and everything like that. You go back to cup finals, and I was watching one yesterday when Man United beat Liverpool. Eric Cantona comes from a corner. You know what I mean? It's been there. It's been there all the time. Arsenal are good at it. And I'll tell you what, from an Arsenal point of view, and I had it when I went down to you guys and all that. Like, when Arsenal get a corner and that, there's a dead silence. You know what I mean, of everybody.
Last season it was, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, as a fan, you quite enjoy that night. You know what I mean? So, listen, I don't think Arsenal are going to win this league going the way that they are at the moment. I think they will change and will have to change. There'll be times when they do and times. But one good thing about Arsenal is that they can play different ways. It's not just one way. And if we can't get you that way, we can get you another way. And that's how I look at it at this moment in time. And listen, guys. You've got better on set pieces this season. You probably should have won last week, and Man United get a set piece. You know what I mean? Yeah. And the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you score as long as you score and as long as you win. You know what I mean? And look, listen, we didn't score a set piece on Saturday at Sunderland, and we didn't win. You know what I mean? So then we go to Fulham, which is a difficult game. We get a set piece and score. I know what I want at the end of the day. There's going to be a lot of those games, but I'm not that worried about it at the moment. I've seen Arsenal entertain a lot. And to be honest, there have been 3 or 4 games this season when I just think, we haven't looked like we're going to get the goal, and then we've got a goal through a set piece, and then won 3 or 4, like as I said earlier on against Madrid, and games like that, and so there are. Listen, if Arsenal win 2-0 and it's 2 set pieces, you won't hear me complaining,
Cracks, you made that point earlier about the fact you feel the game, if we're going to win it will be from a set piece. Is there a degree of understanding at the moment that the squad, in comparison to Arsenal, with all due respect, I think Lee's right, there was a time 3 or 4 years ago where they felt there was that gap, pretty much neck and neck with the clubs. I think it's fair to say, and we have to be honest about it, Arsenal have pulled away. You look at the 2 squads now retrospectively, Arsenal's backup defenders, in terms of what they've got there, and in terms of in reserve, the likes of Ben White, Hincapie, a player that Spurs were chasing for a number of years as well. They've got Mascara there as a player that can come into the team. Is it fair to say that in regards to this game, you say about the fact that we have to nick it from a set piece, do you just feel from a quality front four, what we've got at the moment, just simply isn't there to be able to compete on that level at the moment with Arsenal?
Rick, I've never quite got this hatred of set pieces because, I mean, it's not pure football. So every goal has to be scored like Pele and escape to victory with his arm in a sling and going round like 15 players before slotting it home. It's just, football doesn't work like that. And with set pieces, they're cleverly well worked, well thought out passages of play most of the time that have been worked on the training pitch, and okay, it becomes a little bit sort of almost like NFL set plays, you know. This one goes that way, that one runs that way. You hope to pull open a little bit of a gap. Someone comes in and you get yourself a goal. I mean, they're actually technically really well worked out because the dead ball has to be right and the person coming to meet it has to either meet it with his foot or his head in some way and get that right as well. So I've never understood the dislike of it. Even the long throw into the box. If you can just get a ball in there and cause some chaos in the opposition box, then I'm all for it. Because if you like, take Sunday, if you go there and nick a goal off of a set piece and win it, who's going to be moaning about it? Absolutely no one's going to be moaning about it. Who moaned about a free kick in the 91 semi-final? That's that's a set piece, a free kick, and up steps Gascoigne and does that. But yet nobody really moans about that. I've just never understood the hatred of it, to be honest. And I think it probably gives us our best chance, really, of getting something, unless Van der Ven goes absolutely mad again, of course, and just comes out from the edge of his box and does what he does again. It's that's probably going to give us our best chance. Look, you've got to try and work and have different ways of doing things, but until Thomas Frank gets his players that he wants and this brand new board that we've been promised where everything's going to be different now, and in January we buy all these super shiny new players because Enoch are different, apparently. Let's wait and see. That's what you've got to have. You just got to have some patience to go through that transformation. You got to do what Arsenal have done. Basically, you've got to pick a manager, pick a style, and as long as you see a progression, season on season, month on month, then you stick with it and you work in conjunction with a board that backs you with some proper money to bring in good quality players. And you just have to slowly build it, because Arsenal, like us, haven't got a regime behind them that can fund it in various different ways. Arsenal, very similar to us in the model of the way the club raises funds to be able to make purchases. So you just have to go through that process of not being able to go, like with Chelsea, here's £1 billion instantly, and we'll just buy, a shit ton of really great players, and leaving a manager almost moaning about how many good players he's got because he can't keep everybody happy. We've just got to evolve over time. So, look, pick a manager. It wasn't Ange. He had a couple of seasons, and you couldn't see any progression now. That sort of week on week, inch progression. Maybe we get that with Thomas Frank. Maybe it isn't, Rick, but you've got to at least stick with it for a couple of seasons, give it a good go, get the players that they want, and see where it takes you. Because at the moment, it's just, you've got some of Poch's players almost still hanging around the place, and there's some Mourinho players, and there's some Conte players still there, and then there's, when Daniel Levy was meddling and buying a couple of players, and they're in there as well. So at the moment, no manager's ever really, since Pochettino, got a good run at windows and getting together the players that they want. So we're going to have to be patient and try and see this through and go through a bit of pain whilst we're doing that. In the meantime, if set pieces give you the best option to be able to try and get some goals whilst you're trying to find ways of playing in another way, then that's what we have to do to win games. But ultimately, look, it is an entertainment game as such, and you want to go and you want to hope to be entertained. But the big headline of it all is getting the win. is getting results. It's now a results game. But, the impatience of the fan base, I don't think is only steeped just in football. I think that's just societal, to be honest. Everybody wants everything now. Nobody saves up to buy a car anymore, or nobody sort of like puts a few quid away to do this or do that. Everybody's like, oh, okay, the new iPhone's out. I've got to go and have that now. I must have that now, whereas, so that sort of comes from different societal pressures, if you like. So, and people are paying big money as well to go football. You're paying 80, 90 quid a week, and you're almost now expecting to get the result and get entertained, which is indexed to how much you've paid. So, there's a lot of things that feed into that impatience. But set piece gives us a good chance. Let's see how we go with it.
Just out of interest, Bill, coming over to you, where would a game be won and lost? I know, it's the first time we're having to face potentially Eze in an Arsenal shirt. We were there that night when we lost him. That was a tricky show to do, and bless Dharma Chef that night covering on having to react to that with us. Obviously, Xavi Simons is the man Spurs finally turn to in their number 10 pursuit. Could this be Xavi's time to step up, Bill? Is there concerns about Eze showing up for Arsenal? What's your thoughts on in terms of where the game we won and lost?
It would be fantastic if Xavi did. He scored a really good goal for Netherlands. He's played in this kind of occasion before. He's played Champions League football. He's played for PSG. Played for some big games in Germany as well. He's got a huge price tag, and he's definitely starting to show signs of why he has that huge price tag. So, if he can do it, then fantastic. I think Eze again will also be similarly disappointed. He's had some good moments with Arsenal. I don't think he's, as Lee mentioned earlier, hasn't set the world alight yet. So it could be something individual like that. We've seen in the past derbies in the past some best goals in derbies. Danny Rose, David Bentley. Unfortunately, I was there. Who's that? Flamini scored an absolute banger against us. I remember sitting in the stands for that time. It could be something like that. But I think in this game in particular, with the way that the two teams play, it's going to come down to set pieces and concentrating defending. For us, we're going to have to concentrate for 90 minutes. Incredible defensive performance. We're going to need the World Cup final Romero to turn up, and we're going to need Ricky van der Ven to be at his absolute best. And when we look at some of our players that we've had recently, particularly the performances, Porro and Vicario in particular are prone to a bit of brain dead moments. That's going to be up. There's going to be absolutely zero of those if we're going to get anything from this game. I think in terms of our scoring, I can only really see it being from a set piece, just because our open play at the moment is quite poor. So I think it's going to come down to either a bit of individual brilliance or a set piece, to be honest with you, mate. But for us, we're going to have to play the perfect game, which we are capable of doing it. They did it against Man United in the Europa League final in a massive game. So that's what we're going to have to do again.
Yeah, and we've seen the team can do it. We didn't go away to City and do that as well. Again, we were without players on that day, like the likes of Maddison and Kulusevski and Salaki to some degree, so they can do it. Lee, I asked you about pressure earlier on Arteta. You said you're fairly happy at the moment. So, obviously, Arsenal are in that title conversation right now. I think I always ask you this with Arteta, that does he have to win something this season? Is he got to that point where, because again, Spurs winning last season, it ramped up that pressure even further with the money that's been spent on the squad Arsenal now amassed? Do you feel he now has to win something? What's the general vibe for you?
Yeah, I think that with the players that we've got and the team that we've got, he's got to, because if you can't, people are going to go, well, okay, there's got to be someone out there that can get you over the line. And that, look, with success comes pressure, and that is just part of the game, isn't it? There was a couple of years ago when we were both of us teams celebrating getting top four and being really happy with it and all that. But that's not good enough now, because we've gone on and up another level, and you want to win. So I think at the end of the day, if you're not winning something with this team, when you've got the best defence in the league, outstanding midfield players, and we've got the proper striker now in Enquiries, and you're not winning things, then you've got to look elsewhere, and you've got to look at the manager. Why?
We had the best defence in the league, best striker in the league, we didn't win anything with that. So
I get that. I get that with Tottenham when you had like that team.
Team, yeah.
Yeah, it was, you know, and when you look back at that, and funny enough, I was on holiday with a couple of Spurs people, and they was running through that team. You think like Walker, Trippier as like the two fullbacks.
Dembele
You
was
had
on
like Danny Rose at the left back when he was outstanding. The two central defenders, Belgian boys.
Yeah.
You had Dembele in midfield, and you had the best goal scorer of the Premier League era at the time as well, you know. So it doesn't guarantee. So, you know, when you look at that, like, you probably would look at Pochettino, and I know there's a lot of fans that still got a lot of love for him, and rightly so. Ultimately, it comes down to fine lines, isn't it? You got to a couple of finals. I remember semi-final against Chelsea. They had an unbelievable performance there that day and deserved to beat you. And Chelsea being Chelsea, like they seem to have got the thing over here, the Champions League final. Let's be honest, if it was played now, it wouldn't have been handball, and you never know what happens after that. Yeah. So, and the same with Arsenal. We've had a couple of near chances of winning things, but you need a little bit of luck to get it over the line. But when you look at the team that Arsenal have got at this moment in time, you know, if we don't get the job done, like it was with Spurs, you would have to have a look at the manager and go, look, you know, with that team, I think, you know, most Spurs fans would probably say that they should have won something then. You know what I mean? Like, you know, unbelievably they didn't. I can't believe they didn't with that team. You know what I mean? It was that team. The one was the last season at White Hart Lane. That's the best Spurs team I've ever seen. Mm. You know what I mean? As going up as an Arsenal fan, you know what I mean? Actually went to White Hart Lane that day, like, and come out relieved it was only 2-0. You know what I mean? Like, I never, over all the years of Tottenham, I've always gone there thinking we had a chance, you know?
Yeah.
So that's how good they were. So, you know, and you look back and you scratch your head. Why? I don't want to be like an Arsenal fan scratching my head going, well, how comes we've got all these good players and we're not getting over the line? Listen, we have come up against, over the last few years, an unbelievable Manchester City side, you know, so you can make a little bit of an excuse for it there, but they're not that team no more. They're not Manchester City. They're not that team that I look at and fear. You know, they've got Haaland in there, of course, but
Haaland at the moment, isn't it, really? Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, listen, you know, I think that, and I don't want to, you know, Spurs went up there and won and deserved to win. Like, I think they've got more of those sort of games in them this season. I do, you know, I mean, like, you know,
this is my worry. I think with Arsenal, I think they could get so far ahead on points that they could actually have an implosion mid-season and not actually make a problem, not actually be a problem, because they could be that far ahead. I don't know if you agree on that, Lee. And again, you'll probably want to be more cautious.
I'd like to think that. I think that, you know, these next two league games are massive for us. You know, even forgetting Bayern Munich in between that line, you know, you're playing like two, but you're playing Spurs at home, which is always tough. And then we're going to Chelsea away, like, you know what I mean? And in between that, we got like Bayern Munich. It wouldn't be like, well, I'm worried about Bayern Munich, but you've got Harry Kane coming there. And so there's a little bit more on that than normal, you know what I mean? Because you don't want him coming there and scoring and winning against you, even though, like, I ain't got a problem with Harry Kane now that he's Bayern Munich's Harry Kane. But at the end of the day, you don't want it to happen. So, you know, it's a difficult one how to you know, like, to say it, like, you know. But if Arsenal were to beat Tottenham and Chelsea in these next two games, I think that if I'm a Man City fan and I'm a Liverpool fan, I'm looking at that and thinking, oh, they might drop points here against Tottenham and they might drop points against Chelsea. If Arsenal were to go there and win, that would be there. And that's the one thing, guys, that just a little bit of a worry is, you know what I mean, we should have done the job at Sunderland. That would have kept us a little bit more of a cushion than what it was, you know what I mean? Instead of, like, you know, for instance, we could have been, I think, 6 points, maybe, I think 6, 7, 8 points in front. I don't know what it would have been, 6 points in front of Man City, but, like, we could be going into the game against you guys 1 point in front. And all of a sudden, like, that you know, it should have been 6 or 7. It's only 1 now, like. So that would put a lot of pressure on that game. So win our next two league games, And I think that is a big statement for us. Like, you know what I mean? 2 big games. You know, it's a massive week for Arsenal. Like, you know, it could end up, could be the best week go. And that's just the weirdest thing about football. It could be the best week going, but still mean nothing at the end of it because you've still got 6 months to go. But if you lose all those 3 games, you know what I mean? It's that's it. It's, you know, we've exploded and, you know, Bottlers FC and everything like that. So it's massive. Just you know, and you know, there's that little bit of extra spice that it Spurs. You know what I mean? So you know, I'd like. Listen, I don't think that Arsenal are quite at that stage where we could say, yeah, we're going to be 15, 20 points off. But you know, it happened with Liverpool last year. I don't think that they was that better than everybody else. It's just that they kept winning, didn't they? Whether it be 1-0, 2-0, and the rest of the teams around them were losing. So it's listen, you know, I'd love to be going into March, April, knowing that we can afford to lose 2 or 3 games. I don't think it'll be like that, unfortunately for us.
And gut feelingly, just on Frank, I asked you about him earlier. Do you think you'll get to that point where you think you're going to fear coming to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium with Thomas Frank in charge of Tottenham?
Good question. Like, you know, do you know what? I say this, you know, you pick up a player from a Brentford or a Bournemouth or someone like that, and you think, well, he's a bloody good player, and they come to the club, and the club's too big for them for whatever reason, expectations. I don't know if that's the same with Thomas Frank, where he's when you're managing Brentford, and if you get a draw against Brighton or a draw against a lose to Aston Villa, it ain't the end of the world, where it is when you're playing for Tottenham or managing Tottenham. So I think the expectations of Tottenham might be too much for him. I don't know, but that's something that you guys are going to have to find out, like, you know, and he's going to have to deal with it, like, you know. There will be times when the pressure will be on, you know, but at the moment, I think he's handled pressure quite well. I would say, like that. The only thing, I was speaking to my Spurs mate, I won't mention him, his name, but he was disappointed with the Chelsea performance. It wasn't just the result; it was the Chelsea performance. It
was bad. Yeah.
To just turn over and roll over against Chelsea was that he said that hurt, and that hasn't done Frank any favours whatsoever. But I you know what I mean, like he's good enough to turn it around. He's one of those managers you can't dislike, can you? Like, do you know what I mean? Even though he's a Spurs manager.
Yeah. Well, I think his first words in the Tottenham job were in his first press conference was, unfortunately, Arsenal are one of the best teams in the world. You thought, Thomas, probably not the best thing to say when you just got the job.
Yeah, but like, you know, maybe use that as his advantage because he's gone and beat Arsenal. I know it was only in a friendly, but he got one over us on that game there, like, you know what I mean? So I think tactically, I know it was only a friendly, but I looked at that and you know what I mean? It was I didn't enjoy that, guys. You know what I mean? I know it was only a friendly, like, you know what I mean?
No, we know. Listen, yeah, of course.
I had about 200 Chinese singing, like, you know what I mean? Champions of Europe, which was a bit of a weird thing. And giving a stick, like, you know what I mean? Like 1-0 to Tottenham and all that, like. But no, listen, I think, you know, time will tell. Do you want my honest opinion? I think he's a better manager than Ange. If I be honest, I think he's a better manager. Do you feel more going to? I mean, that's a question to ask you, Lee. On that point, do you have more trepidation on Spurs coming to you under Frank than you do under Ange? Oh yeah. Like, I'm not being horrible, like, you know what I mean. Like when Ange comes to, listen, he got a draw against Arsenal, like, you know what I mean. Yeah, in the first season. But at the end of it, like, you know, I don't know, like, if Ange changed at the end of the season in Europa League, didn't he? He changed the way that Tottenham played. It weren't great, but he got results and he won the game. Why he didn't do that earlier on in his thing, I don't know. I don't know if it was stubbornness or whatever, or because I think he sort of went down a path he couldn't go back on, like, you know what I mean. I don't think Thomas Frank is that naive. I think he's a little bit more clever than that, if I'll be honest. So, you know, I think that let him get his play. If he got some more play, like you know, Solanke's not there at the moment. Like, you know what I mean? I know, like people go on about, but players like Solanke, you know, is a sort of Thomas Frank sort of a player. Like, you know what I mean? You got the best out of someone like Tony. You got someone out, you know. So I think that, you know, you haven't got like Kulusevski there. Like, you haven't got Maddison there. Like, you know what I mean? So, you know, your forward line is a little bit more blunt than what it should be. So maybe he has to play like that to a certain degree. I know it sounds silly, but maybe he has to until he gets his players. So it's you know, listen, I don't think he's as good as Pochettino. There you go. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if I'll be honest, you know. So, you know, when he had that team, that was an horrible time to be an Arsenal fan. So, you know what I mean. I don't want him to do well, guys. Come on, let's be honest. I hope he fails. You know what I mean?
It's crazy. We've come to you to cancel every Spurs manager whenever you come in here. We ask you, what do you think? What do you think? We've asked Lee so much about our managers. They've had the same one for the last.
Yeah, you see it from a different point when you're not involved. You know what I mean? Like, people used to come up to me going, "Oh, you don't know what you know about Arsene Wenger and all that." I say, well, you don't see it week in, week out. You just see it from the outside in and whatever, like, you know, and you see results and all that, like, you know.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, like, I know it sounds silly, right? You know, if Spurs beat Bournemouth and Spurs beat Wolves, you'd be looking at a completely different outlet to what you are now, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. You'd have another 6 points on top of it, like, you know, you're unbeaten away from home, you know what I mean? There'd be a little bit more cockiness and arrogance in the Spurs fans. And not having a go at it, that's how it would be, you know what I mean? Like, but because that home form has not been quite there, you know, if you look at it, you've gone to, I think it's a difficult place, Everton. And I thought comfortable winners when you know what I mean? I look, listen, guys, I've been really, I only watch Spurs when I think they're going to lose, right? So I watched the game against Everton, watched the game against Manchester City, right? And he was superb that day, you know what I mean? Like, I had Man City in the last man standing, and I had a double whammy that day. But like, so you know, they're not. But then I didn't watch the game against Man United, right? But I don't know if you guys know, but Stuart Pearce was on one with Romero that day. Like, he was slagging him off and he's going, "Oh, this ain't a great Spurs performance." They were saying it weren't a great, you know, a great first half. Deserves to be a goal down. Then there was the substitutions, and all the Spurs fans were booing him and that, like, you know. Then they go 2-1 up, and realistically, with 10 men, you see out of that game. Yeah, of course. And things would be a little bit different, like, you know. So, is that Thomas Frank's fault that, you know what I mean, that for that corner? I don't know. You know what I mean. He sort of changed with the substitution. He must have been thinking to himself, yeah, like, when everybody's booing him on, and he's got, oh, look, I've turned it around here, like, you know. I know best. But listen, you know, I think sometimes individual errors don't help and things like that with players, and, you know, they're not quite good enough. You know, you've got players in that team. I'm telling you this now. You've got players in that team that you all think are really, really good, right? And when you get the players that come in, you realise that they're not. You know what I mean? We had that, like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. You think, oh, he's a good player. Like, why? You know, like, I'll be honest, I didn't think Lacazette was a bad player. I didn't think Aubameyang was a bad player. You know what I mean? Like Ozil, that was all. But now I look back at other players and I see them and go, do you know what? They weren't that fucking good.
I think that's fair, though. I think that's where we are now, though, Lee. I think on that point, I think there's a lot of fans that probably do recognise that. As long as, you know, it's like Bill. We've got players like Odebear, for example. Fans will get behind him. Bergvall, Sarr. We've got a lot of young players, you know, with, you know, that, again.
Yeah, potentially. Exactly that. Exactly
potential,
that.
Though. Potential. Yeah. But I think, you know, what Arsenal have shown in the last few years, they've gone and bought players that are kind of ready to explode on the scene, like the Declan Rices. Again, like, you know, you look at, again, Enquiries, for example. Bill, kick us off. Prediction. What are we going for?
Yeah, and as you mentioned there, it's only really this window where we've started to do the same with Kudus and Palhinha and Xavi Simons. So hopefully, if we continue, and Arsenal, I hate to say it, but they've just shown that if you do that consistently for 5, 6, 7 years, you're going to be up there. You're going to be up there year on year. And Arsenal have been in 4 or 5 consecutive title races because they constantly spend, and that's what they want. I'm never going to try and predict a loss in this game, so I'm going to go for a 1-1. Get out of there, make it an absolute horrific game of football, and never speak of it ever again. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I'll join you on 1-1. That's, I think, the best I personally can hope for up there. Cracks, set pieces.
Yeah. I'll snap your hand off right now for where we are in our progression. I'll take 0-0 all day long, but we're not going to not concede. I don't think so. Look. 1-1, I'll snap your hand off. I'll be happy to see a performance the complete polar opposite to Chelsea. I want to see a performance. That's all I'm looking for. Of course, I'd love to get a win, and be delighted with even a draw. But at the moment, I just want to see performances, and I want to start to see something coming through, and that inch by inch progression with Tottenham, and see them playing like with the Man U game. Rick, we were a bit sort of dead and buried, wasn't we? It was not much happening, but you could see them wanting to play. You could see they got that one goal, then the second, and then just got undone at the end with a little bit of that lapse of concentration. And that's been the thing with Thomas Frank so far. The Chelsea performance stunk. The Bournemouth game was the Semenyo show. But apart from that, performances have been pretty decent, to be honest. So a lot of this is sort of tweaks and bits and pieces that need looking at, and getting some personnel back. And like Lee said, you think someone's a decent player, but then you've got to link the players. It's like, with Xavi Simons at the moment, getting an awful lot of stick, but there was a couple of times in that Man U game, he took a ball, made a nice turn, went round a couple of players, looked up, there's no one there.
No.
There's no outlet for him. And, he's not Moussa Dembele that can just hold the ball up and wait for people to join him. He had no one, loses the ball, and then all of a sudden the crowd's like, "Oh, this kid's shit, get rid." But, so at the moment you've got like Van der Ven, Romero, Danso, that three, they sort of interchange, and they're all like got each other, if you like. So they've got that player next to them or around them that works. And even with left back and right back, but midfield, alongside a Simmons, you need somebody that complements him, if you like. So until you get those links in play and those better quality players to make the other one shine, you're going to end up with a false sort of look of how bad someone is, when they could be a lot better if they had a better player around them. So at the moment, I like what I'm seeing. Go there on Sunday, get something from the game, and that will help. That will help the mood music around Thomas Frank, I think, at the moment. When we went 2-1 up, at least he wasn't cupping his ear at the fans, and I'm really not missing that. I'm liking his calm adult demeanour that he has with the fans and the press. So that's really helping him in my book at the moment. And I shall leave it there. Otherwise, we'll be talking about previous managers all evening. 1-1. Please.
Lee, next time we'll see will be for the reverse of this fixture. God help us. That will come round fast now, the way the fixtures are falling. Do I need to even ask you a prediction, Lee? Like you said, you're going to have a win.
I always say it's a tough game. I think home advantage is massive in this game, and I think that, I think it'd be 1-0, 2-0 to the Gunners. That's what I think, but it'll be a tough game. I think Spurs will make it very, very difficult for us, If Spurs score first, I fear. I'll tell you that now. You know what I mean? Like, I fear it. But if we can get ahead, set piece, I'll be very happy. Like, you know what I mean?
Ali, I've been asked, what happens in your family if Spurs win, or is that forbidden?
Listen, you know, when we have a truce, we don't really speak afterwards and things like that. Like, you know, yeah. So it's not great. Yeah, like I don't speak to my brother like before or after the game. Like, you know, and you know what? We've had this thing like when Arsenal have beaten Spurs, we never bring it up in conversation. You know, I'm desperate too. He's probably desperate too as well. Like, but we don't. You know what I mean? We have this mutual thing where we don't really go on about it. If you know, like my mum was part of the bill. You know what I mean? Where was I? I think I was in Prague. And Van der Ven scored. He goes, he phoned me and he said, you've got to watch this Van der Ven. And I went, Bill, why would I want to watch that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've still not seen it to this day. Like, you know what I mean? So we have a little bit of banter, you know what I mean? Like a little bit, but he'd never ring me up if Arsenal have Spurs have beaten us. And the same with the other way around. I'd never do that. Like, you know what I mean? So we just, we're very respectful.
Well, listen, Lee, it's always a pleasure, mate, to have you on here. I know we've been told you're the only Arsenal fan that's bearable on here. So, listen, we love having you on, mate. It's always good to get a perspective of the neighbour. So, listen, mate, we look forward to having you back on for the reverse fixture. And, Lee, where can all these Spurs fans find you on Sunday?
Well, nowhere. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I should, like, not so bad at home. Like, I see when you go to Tottenham, I have to keep like, ducking and wearing a wig and things like that. Like, you know what I mean? So, no, I should be in my normal seats. You know what I mean? So, and if we do score, the first thing I do is always look over to the Spurs fans. I'll give you a little wave if you're in there, like, you know.
You're a superstar, mate. Cracks, Bill, thank you, boys, so much. Let's take the trip to the dentist as best as we can. Lee, thank you, mate. We look forward to catching up with you on the reverse fixture. Thanks to the over 4,500 that have been with us for this one. We really appreciate your support as always. Let's see what the next instalment of Frank Ball gives us from us all here on Last Word on Spurs. Please keep safe, keep well, and as always, come on, you Spurs, please.